Greetings, BArcadians, and welcome to another episode of Gaming News Weekly with your hosts, as ever, me, Tabs, and my good friend and channel buddy, Rich. Say hello, Rich.
Hello, how are we doing?
I should say fellow Tarnish, wouldn't I, as well, Rich?
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, greetings, BArcadians. Hope you're well. Hope you're looking forward to, at least in the UK, Easter weekend. Is it worldwide, Rich? I don't know. About Easter as a national holiday.
I don't know. I would have said not, but who knows.
Moving swiftly on, if you're new to the channel and Gaming News Weekly, we tell you what we've been playing in a given week, sharing our passion and enthusiasm for video games. We then run into the main feature of the news show, which is 3 of the juiciest topics we can find in any given week. And it's, spoiler alert, it's not the juiciest of gaming news weeks. And then finally, we finish off with our quickfire everything else round. And that should wrap us up in around 25, 30 minutes. We've been known to go to 40, but we're going to try and keep it at a minimum for you this week because we've got Elden Ring to play. But Rich, over to you, my friend. Wax lyrical on what we've been playing, because it's the same story for us both again, isn't it?
Absolutely. So I think it seems to be the never-ending game that we're playing. Elden Ring, I think we're like 60 hours in, roughly. I think Tabs is about 80 odd hours in. But yeah, just more of the same. Just really, really enjoying the game. We've hit some trickier parts, which especially last night we were playing. I've hit a specifically tricky part which I have to do on my own, and I need to be better, I guess, ultimately. But yeah, so it's just good fun. I really enjoy playing it, and it's really good fun to play together. So anyone who's playing it sort of singly, it is really good to play as a sort of cooperative experience. So yeah, just really enjoying the game, and I'm sure. I think Tab, we did a boss. I think it was earlier on this week, when Tabs looked up, that boss was actually categorised as the end of the mid-game, which is interesting given we're 60 hours in. So yeah, I'm just really enjoying it. What about you, Tabs?
Yeah, same, mate. We're obviously taking our time with it.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty clear. You know, we're trying to feel most things out. Because I've probably had a little bit more time here and there, you know, you've had some busy weekends. I've kind of been twiddling my thumbs, if you like. So pushing on a few more quests here and there, I think. Just, you know, exploring some of the areas we've already discovered together. So yeah, we've got that kind of slight thing at the minute where I suppose I'm probably a little bit more powerful and you aren't quite. So yeah, we've got to correct that, haven't we, a little bit? We've got to make sure we get back on track and push you past some of these bosses, as you say, that you're stuck on at the minute, because yeah, it's just better that way, isn't it, when you have parity when we're playing it together. So absolutely. That's our next thing. But yeah, it's just it's crazy how big the game is. I can't believe it. Every few days, you know, my expectations are then like, what? It's this big? I can't believe it. I honestly thought we'd be completed it by now, mate, easily.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I would say the whole game is split up to certain areas, and you unlock more areas of the open world. I would say every area that we've sort of been in, so you know, like the first area you're in and stuff, it's as big as a whole game. There's enough content there for it to be an entire game. You know, with bosses to kill, you know, dungeons to go, quest paths to follow. And yet that there's like multiple areas of that, you know, I think up to 5 or 6 areas now, and they're all huge, and it almost feels like multiple games. It's that compelling, that like huge. You can't believe that they've created such a vast game full of content.
The value alone, isn't it, when you compare it to a lot of games out there, is incredible. Obviously, as long as you get on with the gameplay. It's just unbelievable. And yeah, a great kind of, hopefully, influence on the rest of the games industry, because I'd love to see more games, you know, made in that way. Obviously not of the same style and genre necessarily, but with so much, you know, passion, clearly, you know, industriousness, forged with.
Yeah,
I can't construct sentences, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's just, Amazing. But anyway, let's move on to the first story this week, mate, while I can just about string a sentence together. And the first headline reads, Breath of the Wild 2 Next Gen. And this article comes from Games Radar, who had this to say. Tech experts think The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 might be a little too good for the Nintendo Switch. In the latest episode of Digital Foundry Weekly, Richard Ledbetter, John Linneman, and Alex Battaglia discussed the recent gameplay snippets for the Breath of the Wild sequel. There's an excellent breakdown of the technical aspects of the new trailer, including anti-aliasing, 1080p, 720p rendering, draw distances and more, which leads the group to doubt the sequel is actually intended for the Nintendo Switch. Chiefly, Battaglia believes the Breath of the Wild sequel could launch in a similar fashion to the original 2017 game. The first Breath of the Wild launched over both the Wii U and the Nintendo Switch, and Battaglia thinks this is what Nintendo has up their sleeve with the sequel, launching it on both the Switch and the more powerful version of the console. Additionally, Battaglia thinks the camera cuts in the latest trailer have perfect anti-aliasing points. Having perfect anti-aliasing points to the new game running on a revised Switch console. This is something that even the Xbox Series X struggles with at times. So it's hard to imagine the 2017 console from Nintendo absolutely nailing the technique. Volumetric clouds also not breaking down when approached by Link in the sky is also another indication of the sequel running on more powerful hardware, the host adds. It certainly is up for debate as to whether the Breath of the Wild sequel trailer really is running on the Nintendo Switch. While it's entirely possible Nintendo fine-tuned the trailer to make it look better than the final game, Linneman rightly points out that Nintendo typically doesn't pull this marketing stunt and shows games in trailers exactly how they run on actual hardware. It looks like those Nintendo Switch Pro rumours will keep doing the rounds for now. Long story.
Got through it well.
So, thanks, mate. So yeah, this one... really interesting, because we've obviously got, to hear this from some of the best technical minds in the industry. There's real credence to this. And if Nintendo have essentially tarted it up, either on, because they're building it in, on different hardware before they kind of, print it onto the cartridges to go on the Switch, or... yeah, they've just literally spruced it up to make it look better, which I suppose, because they're amid PS5 and Xbox Series games, maybe that's possible. They want to make sure it still strikes out at audiences to keep them interested, keep them relevant, and then they'll downgrade it when they do actually release it on the Switch. It's an interesting one. But I'd love to think, and we touched upon it, didn't we, when the trailer was released, that it would launch on a Switch Pro. I'd love to think that, and I don't know, mate, over to you. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think when they announced the delay, we sort of suggested that maybe they'd done that to coincide with some new hardware. It's interesting. The thing is, these guys really know what they're talking about. That's the thing, isn't it? And when they suggest stuff like this, you stand up and take note, because they are like, they know their stuff on these things. So I do find that very interesting. I don't know, would it be the sort, in terms of like next year, 2023, would that be a good time to drop a more powerful Switch hardware? You would say yes, especially given the fact it would be a good counter to the next gen proposition that we've got from Sony and Microsoft. So it sort of makes a lot of sense. And obviously we know how well Breath of the Wild sold when it came out with the Switch, so it would suggest that would be a good move to make. So it's interesting, and I think I don't know about you, Tabs, but for me, I would be like, if the option was right, Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out, but you can get a better experience, with lots of upgrades to the hardware, buying it with a Switch Pro or a Switch 2 or whatever it's going to be, I would very much consider that, because it's a game that I'm going to hold in high esteem and really look forward to. Whether it lives up to that expectation, it's hard to say, but it's that sort of quality of game that I would be prepared to spend that money to get that better play experience.
Exactly, mate. And that's perfect, because it is the perfect title to churn their Switch audience, to get them to reinvest and buy a new upgraded model. And obviously with the OLED screens, we know they got that deal with, I think, Samsung. there's a suggestion, isn't there, that the chip shortage situation is beginning to alleviate.
Absolutely.
And that, the facts there kind of stack up with a next year launch. So the facts line up. The thing that doesn't is just what we know about Nintendo. We're always hoping that they're going to be more aggressive with this sort of move, with this kind of investment in technology, and they're always not.
Very true.
Much because they're the architects of their own success. They're making money, so why do they need to?
Yeah.
But we always want to push them in that direction, and most of the time they tend to kind of disappoint us in that respect. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, but it's nice to have that little hope in the back of our minds that could be the case, and another marquee moment, if so, mate, isn't it, for me and you?
Absolutely.
Jumping on a new Switch model with a game like that.
Absolutely.
But, mate, speaking of massive open world epics, do you want to take us on to story number 2?
Absolutely. So, Witcher 3.5 delay, and this comes from GameSpot. CD Projekt Red has delayed the new gen version of the Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which will see the hit RPG released on PS5 and Xbox Series X. A new release date was not shared, but it will not arrive in the second quarter, meaning between now and the end of June, as was previously announced. The delay is due to CD Projekt Red's internal development taking over the project. We are currently evaluating the scope of the work to be done and thus have to postpone Q2 release until further notice, it said in a tweet today. Previously, Saber Interactive had been handling the port. No reason was given for the shift to CD Projekt Red's internal team, which is also continuing to work on improving Cyberpunk 2077 and developing its post-release content. Kotaku points out that it was a Russia-based team working on the game, though CD Projekt Red declined to comment when asked if the Ukraine invasion factored into the decision to pull the game from Saber. CD Projekt Red previously suspended game sales in Russia. We don't currently have any sense of how long the delay might be, but based on the vague timeline shared, we won't be seeing it any sooner than July 2022. Previously, the port had been slated for release in late 2021, though CD Projekt Red warned that it could be delayed. And I think a lot of people are actually reporting this story as it delayed indefinitely. So no release date or no suggested release date or sort of guide suggesting from people that it has been postponed indefinitely. Doesn't mean it won't ever come out. I just think because of the change and the fact that they have been so woolly in terms of the information they're prepared to give suggests that they don't really know. And obviously, you could read a lot into this, but it has to be linked to what's going on in the Ukraine at the moment. Surely, Tabs, it has to be.
Yeah, sounds like the geopolitical crisis has affected this one, and yeah, I think probably is the right choice. I'm sure it was a very defensive move on their part because they just don't want another bad news story about them, do they really? So,
absolutely.
And the fact that there's an indefinite new release date does suggest they've literally just had to pull the plug, so quickly that they've got they're probably in that period of like realigning their workflow and figuring out a way to overcome and problem solve. So, yeah, not a lot more to say on this one, my friend. It sounds like the right move. Shame for Witcher fans, but, sport for choice at the minute in that genre. So Elden Ring will probably keep us going until that point.
I think, and obviously we don't talk about what's going on in the world generally on this YouTube channel. We tend to be very focused on games, and that is, what you'll always get here. We know there's some terrible things going on in the world, and we don't make light of those situations. But I would say the last thing that CD Projekt Red as a brand or as a developer of games need is more bad press, and being associated with a company in Russia, given the condemnation of everything Russian at the moment for good cause, I think there's definitely a way to look at this. This was sort of a PR disaster waiting to happen for CD Projekt Red, which they could very much do without. So I think maybe there's definitely some links to that. So yeah, anyway, should we move on?
Yes, mate. Let's wrap things up. Story number 3, Kingdom Hearts 4 announced. And this article comes from Newsround. Not a lot of excitement from me and Rich on this one, BArcadians. It's just never been something. I did play a bit of the first one with my sister actually, but we didn't see it through, and it's just never really bit me. But Kingdom Hearts fans rejoice. Not one, but 2 new games are on their way. The Kingdom Hearts games are celebrating their 20th anniversary this year, and Square Enix, the people who make the games, announced in a special live stream event that Kingdom Hearts 4 and Kingdom Hearts mobile game are on their way. The games will follow the story of Sora and his friends Donald and Goofy as they try to stop an evil force known as the Heartless from taking over the universe. In the previous 3 main games, the characters travelled through lots of different worlds from the Disney and Pixar universe, such as Tangled, Toy Story and Frozen, and helped characters like Elsa, Woody and Princess Rapunzel. Square Enix did not reveal a release date for Kingdom Hearts 4 or what consoles it would be released on. In the new trailer, fans can see the return of the main character Sora, except now with a Super HD makeover, which I think some are a little bit put off by, as well as his pals Donald and Goofy. A new character called Strelitzia was also introduced, who tells Sora he is in Quadratum, a huge city which is super realistic looking and unlike any of the worlds from previous games. Towards the end of the trailer, Sora fights a huge monster called a Heartless, and fans can see some of his new powers in action, such as a grappling hook style addition to his Keyblade. So I have to admit, not seen the trailer. I did see a report though as well on this, just to bolt this one on, Rich, about apparently the graphics are going to be kind of upgraded because it's currently being developed in Unreal Engine 4. By the time of release, it will actually be in Unreal Engine 5. So they're obviously going to add some features there.
I actually saw the same thing. I saw a headline saying that it would look a lot better by final release or something to do with exactly what you just said.
Maybe part of that was in response to this concern about the Sora character redesign. I don't know quite why some fans are annoyed about it. But yeah, like I say, when I played Kingdom Hearts, it just didn't feel to me like it was perhaps aimed at me. You know, it felt like some of the Final Fantasy sort of mechanics, but like almost dumbed down a little bit. And I should be careful what I say here. I could have a legion of Kingdom Hearts fans on me, but
I think,
you know, it does sound cool, mate. You know, your missus loves a Disney, doesn't she? And touring through all that sort of those worlds does actually sound really cool.
I think the trouble with this is, for us, it's games that we don't. And like I say, I don't want to upset anybody, but it's games that we're not that interested in. Now, from what I've seen, there's been quite the reaction to this. People, you know, lots of people are talking about it. You know, lots of people are really excited about it. But it's a series of games that we've never really been into. Tabs, you know, has alluded to that now. So it's one that is cool to see, but not really one that we're suddenly like aghast to want to go out and play and get excited about. So that sort of really sums it up, I think.
Yeah, but you know, if you are a Kingdom Hearts fan, then really excited for you. You know, fantastic to have that on the radar, isn't it, on the horizon to look forward to.
Absolutely.
But Rich, shall we rush on with everything else? And you kick us off, my friend.
Absolutely. So first up, there are rumours circulating that Sony and PlayStation have bought Kojima Studios, bringing it under the PlayStation Studios umbrella. This comes by way of the fact that Death Stranding has been added to the PlayStation Studios website, and Kojima has moved office, but we don't know where to. So interesting. We're going to watch that one.
That it would be a BA certified manoeuvre from Sony, if that is true.
Absolutely.
Completed.
Absolutely.
The Elden Ring speedrun record is now under 7 minutes, but like I said, BArcadians, don't let that be any sort of reflection on the game itself, because it's mammoth. I don't know how they do it.
No.
We're going to need to watch this after we've completed it, mate.
Absolutely. Kojima wanted Metal Gear Solid to have the original, to have pet rats for Snake to raise and keep and name, which I think actually, awesome. When you hear him talk about it sounds like that would be a really cool extra mechanic in there, almost like a Tamagotchi within the game that, you know, that Snake would have to look after. So yeah, that's quite an interesting idea.
Send them out on little missions and stuff as well, grabbing your items and recon. That's Kojima's brain, eh?
Absolutely.
Sony has invested $1 billion in Fortnite developer Epic Games.
Crazy.
Wow. Is this all to do with metaverse movements, Rich?
Possibly.
Hard to say. Choosing sides. Obviously,
Possibly.
Epic are a major player. But anyway, BArcadians, that's enough of us this week. Hope you enjoy your weekends. Thanks for tuning in. Smash the like button to support the channel. Make sure you subscribe and you ring the bell to stay abreast of every episode we put out. And we'll see you next week at 5 p.m. UK time. Be there or be square. I think that's another one for the archives, Rich.
Stamped and completed.